All right, let's take a look at the Clarence Jones piece of rhetoric on Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. When looking at the bold blurb, you will see that it says to write an essay analyzing rhetorical choices Jones makes to achieve his purpose. Doesn't really give away the purpose. You have to figure out the purpose, and the purpose is not is obvious as some other times. And some of the prompts actually give you the purpose in it, but we don't have that here. Okay. So as I showed you with the blank, you can see mine is full, right? You got to write it down as you are coming across, the pieces. And as you read the first two paragraphs, there is a plethora of poetic sort of language. There is imagery, there's poetic language, there's pathos, there's metaphor, there's an allusion to Robert Frost, there's an allusion to the great emancipator, which is Abraham Lincoln. I don't know what this means yet, but I wrote it down because something's coming, but I have to evaluate it. Notice the first three paragraphs are merely a sentence or two, nothing big at all, but there's a lot of literary devices in there. Then all of a sudden, we come to a huge paragraph, a big one. Well, that should be cue that this is important, okay? In there is not so much rhetorical devices, okay, other than an analogy, a huge analogy, which is actually the most important aspect of this piece. The analogy is of a movie to a book. He also uses what can be argued as antithesis or chiasmus, okay? It doesn't matter which one you use, and I'm not 100% sure which is which. But it is the expression where he says text without context, okay? That is done intentionally, and that is to draw your attention to it. The other analogy is he refers to, he says when someone says this was a great movie, you should have read the book is better. Anybody who read, especially a Harry Potter book and watched a Harry Potter movie, almost everyone knows that the books are better because you cannot encapsulate everything in a book in a movie. It doesn't work. The term or the expression he used is the vibrancy of the event. So after the first three little paragraphs with all the flowery language, then comes with this big paragraph about analyzing analogizing how the movie and the book is important. That takes us to the last one. The last paragraph basically says you need to buy and read my book. This is an advertisement, okay? Shouldn't be a surprise since the blurb tells you that this was in the prologue of the book. So he's telling you and if you really want to understand what it was like to be with Martin Luther King on that day when he gave that speech at I Have a Dream in front of Abraham Lincoln, you need to read my book. That is the purpose. So then when you fill in the when, where, what, and why, it's now and then, right? I mean, literally, it's talking about, if you want to understand then, you need to read this now. That doesn't happen very often. United States, what are we talking about? We're talking about civil rights. We're talking about a total understanding of the civil rights movement and of that day. And why? And that why is to understand the magnitude of that day, to get all the behind-the-scenes aspects of it. The author is Clarence Jones. The piece behind the dream, and the link or the connection. He's there, and his book ultimately will accentuate all the videos and the speech that everybody's familiar with, right? We all know the speech. We've all seen videos, but if you want to know it all, you got to read the book. So that leads me to how do I put together this essay, okay? Two main paragraphs, okay? Well, all the good stuff's in the third paragraph. But there's a lot of rhetorical devices thrown in those first three little ones. So let's talk about it, all right? And you can just say, and you can do all of them, some of them, it doesn't matter. But he definitely establishes a sense of pathos or emotion. You could say it was an emotional appeal. But the flowery language, you can talk about it. The imagery, there's a bunch of imagery. I use two quotes here, the blue sky and the vibrant green life. If I went back through it, I might find some more. He uses metaphor in here. And the metaphor is he refers to this movement and moment in time as a tsunami and a shock wave. And again, if I scan a little bit, I'll see more. A living monument, a human mosaic, okay? All those things about the March on Washington, right? Those are all metaphors. And he does all of that and says that it is worthy of the great poet Robert Frost. So this was a magical moment that oftentimes is encapsulated by poems, poetry, music, photos, pictures, videos, right? And he's making that. Now there is a high level of diction in here, okay? And I'll come back to that at the end. The second paragraph should focus on the two things, the analogy to the movie, and that if you want a true understanding of everything, you need to read the book. And the antithesis slash chiasmus, and if you don't even remember what that is, you can just say this clever play of diction. You know, if you said that, it's clever play of diction, because that's all a rhetorical device is a clever play of diction. It's just messing with the words to draw attention to us, whether again it's onomatopoeia or alliteration or assonance or any of that. It is done to trigger the mind, and that is the text without context. You want to have the vibrancy of the event. So if you think about all that, right, we have 4 quotes. Blue sky, vibrant green light, text without context, vibrancy of the event. Right? It's 4 quotes, perfect. And you've got a copious amount of rhetorical devices, and you can go to town here, okay? And if you're writing about that, the ultimate purpose of this is to read his book. The first paragraph should be about how it will magnify it in almost sort of the heightened poetic sense. And then the second part is that analogy, right? And it's as simple as that. Before we break out of here, some of the vocabulary. You wouldn't talk about the vocabulary. He's not trying to write these words to, you know, to rise up to impress you or to lower it down to make the connection. This is just an intelligent person writing. But dearth is a magnificent word, and it is a synonym for paucity. Okay, both of them mean they're inadequate. There's not enough. The opposite would be plethora, copious, multitudinous, and we can go on from there. The other word is the word belies, which is a hilarious word because it means to misrepresent. It really means kind of like to deceive, to lie. So you'll see that quite often. Belies, misrepresents. Other word is discourse, which I think pretty much all of us know. It is conversation. Okay, we can talk about just having a discourse. It can be communication in some way, shape, or form. The great emancipator was Abraham Lincoln. Inimitable, which is an interesting word. Inimitable means you cannot imitate it. Okay, not the most commonly used word. And then finally, the cadence of it all, which is the cadence of Martin Luther King and his rhythmic words. Though those words are all there and used, they're not really, that's not worth mentioning for the ultimate end. He's not trying to say, read my book because I use big words. He's saying, read my book because I am going to give you the backstory that you just cannot get from that speech. You cannot get from that speech, and you cannot possibly get from watching the news clips. You have to read the book. And with that, that ends our Clarence Jones Rhetorical Analysis. All right? Happy writing.